Hey meow, it's 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗃. Today I'm going to show you how to import PSD into Live2D to set up a new model. And in this case, I started with a template that already had all these rainbow parameter folders. So that's why I click my model, but the important part is add all layers as a new art mesh. If you're interested in the rainbow template, I have a couple of versions of it on my Ko-fi. I like to call it Ko-fi. I'm just gonna call it Ko-fi if you're interested. And it will also include a video explaining my thought process behind it and how to use it. Once everything is loaded in, then I start building deformers. This is where an organized PSD really shines. When things are already in their own folder, it makes it a lot easier to group them together. This is also where you can plan your hierarchy, because floor planning can really make a big difference. Some basic hierarchy to keep in mind is, okay, I have the head. Within the head, there's the face. And within the face, there are the eyes. Then there's the nose, the mouth, and then within the eyes alone, there are the eye details. And so that's the kind of thought process you have with hierarchy. Everyone has their own process for setting up their models and meshing and cutting and everything else. So find what works for you. So then I use the auto mesh generator to automatically mesh all of my pieces, and then I go in for each layer and I edit it to suit my purposes. This is because the AI for the automatic generator is great, but there's a lot of things that can be improved on, and I know that the newest version of Live2D cubism is going to incorporate a smarter generator. It's still important to know and understand different meshing techniques. It can really help with some problem solving later on. One popular rule of thumb is to create a line of vertices within the shape, within your texture, and then one on the outside so you can capture the edge and have more control over it. One way that helps me with meshing is considering how are you planning on deforming the texture. For example, if you're intending to distort it in a certain way and you know, oh, the very edge of this is going to be really pulled and I need more control over it so it doesn't look like a straight line, consider what your texture might look like while it's being deformed. How many areas do you need for it to comfortably deform into that shape? Sometimes having too many triangles can make it much harder to mesh. So keeping in mind not only for an even distribution of the distortion of your texture, but also just for the sake of your sanity. The eraser tool is really useful, especially when there's just too much stuff. And you can delete them one by one, but why do that? Work smarter, not harder. I'm making use of the Lasso tool to select a whole bunch of vertices at once. The Lasso tool is also quite useful to isolate very specific vertices, so keeping that in mind is always a good thing. Here I'm using the mirror edit tool, which can be a real time saver with symmetrical pieces. And it's not always perfect, sometimes it'll skip some lines, but as long as you're keeping track of everything, then it should be fine. It's not uncommon, at least for me, to mirror accidentally, so for example, I meshed the eyebrow and I forgot that the mirror edit was on and I had a little eyebrow left on the other side, so I had to go back and delete that. It's also important to remember that you can move the mirroring line, which can be very helpful, and it can also appear horizontally as well. When you're meshing, there's some parts that you don't want to lose the detail when you're deforming, so you should mesh along those or near them so you have more control. One of my favorite tools is the stroke path. I just find it very neat, and I enjoy being able to have a lot of control over where exactly I'm going. One thing I highly suggest is copying and pasting your meshes. Not only is this time saving, but it's also very important when you have things that are lying on top of each other. A common problem people have is like, oh, I meshed this and I meshed that, but they're not moving in the same way. Like, why is that? The meshes aren't matched up. They have to be the exact mesh or very close to for you to bend that piece of clothing and have the inside and the outside both move together. One thing to consider is the display, showing the model versus showing the texture atlas, because sometimes either something's too distorted or due to opacity or clipping mask or whatever, it's not showing clearly enough. So then if you use the texture atlas, it can make it a lot clearer for you. Finally, the way I end my process is I like to play with the draw order. Some of you may not be familiar with what draw order even is, but if you see all those 500s on the side of the parts palette, they're basically saying we're all on the same floor of 500, but that makes things more difficult when you need to have things that actually change order. Like for example, example, I'm having the ear start in the back, but if the head turns, I want it in the front. But I don't ever want it to go in front of the feet. So the feet I have is a very high number. The higher the number, the more on top it is. So the feet have a much higher number than the body, and the arms are somewhere in between. So maybe the arms are 500, the feet are 700, and the body is 400. That way I have a lot of wiggle room if I need to change the order of things. I found that out the hard way. You can also have draw order controlled by folders, and then the hierarchy within that folder is what takes precedence. So you could have a 700 folder and it has a 200 and a 300. Well, the 300 is going to be over the 200, but it's still all going to be on top. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, it's fine.